Handpicked green tea is a lot more expensive, but does it actually taste better? In this video, we're going to find out. We'll be comparing a handpicked Gyokuro versus a non-handpicked Gyokuro to see how the taste compares. Which one is a better value for your money? Let's find out. Okay, so here I have two different Gyokuro teas. On the right side, I have a handpicked Seimei Gyokuro from Mr. Sakamoto in Kagoshima. And on the left, I also have another Seimei that is not handpicked, but it is from the same farmer in the same location. So what I want to do today is compare these two different teas and really see if handpicked tea makes a difference in the case with Gyokuro. So if we take a look at the handpicked Gyokuro, you'll notice there's much larger leaves. So Gyokuro's main characteristic is these kind of very dark green, almost black leaves, and they're rolled into these tight pine needle shapes. So in order to achieve this shape, Gyokuro actually goes through a second rolling phase. So typically, most Japanese green teas will be rolled after they're steamed and dried. But Gyokuro is actually going to have this main rolling phase, and it's going to have a second rolling phase after that. And this is how you really get those needle-shaped leaves. So the reason this is important is because Gyokuro tea actually needs 2 minutes in order to brew. Because the leaves are so tightly rolled, they're really designed to lock in the flavor until the tea is ready to be infused. So it's just going to need a little bit longer of a brewing time. And when we compare these two teas together, we'll notice that there are still some needle-shaped leaves here, but they're not quite as long as the hand-picked one. Most teas around the world are hand-picked, but in Japan, it's a much more mechanized production process. So hand picking is actually very rare and it makes the tea very expensive. So today we're gonna see if that's worth it, if it's worth the extra price to go for the hand picking. And what I have here is two different strainers and two different cups. So normally I would brew this tea in a clay kyusu teapot because it gives the leaves more space to expand and release their flavor into the water. The strainer is kind of the next best thing, definitely better than a tea bag. But if you'll notice, it doesn't really allow a ton of space for the tea leaves. But for the sake of comparison, I'm not trying to brew the best cup of tea. I'm just trying to make it a fair comparison. I want to keep all the variables similar. So we have two teas coming from the same cultivar, the Seimei. This is the new tea cultivar. I believe it was registered in 2017 or 18. And Mr. Sakamoto was actually entrusted by the Japanese government to grow some of the first Seimei tea plants. We saw these when we visited him in 2018, and they were just kind of just beginning to sprout. So they still had some time to go before they were ready to be harvested. But finally, we got a shipment, or we got a couple of packs of the Seimei tea to try out and see if it was worth the wait. But more importantly, we're going to see if the hand picking is worth it. So we have the same tea cultivar. We have the same amount of leaves, so about 7-8 grams. I'm going to be using the same temperature water. So the temperature I'm using is 60 degrees Celsius. And this is actually very cool as far as tea goes. So 60 degrees Celsius is about the coolest water temperature you're going to use for brewing tea in general. And the reason we go so low with the Gyokuro temperature is because Gyokuro is really meant to kind of accentuate these sweet and savory flavors. And these can be extracted at a lower temperature, but what the lower temperature will not extract is the bitterness. So this is meant to be a very sweet and smooth tea. Okay, I'm gonna let these teas brew for 2 minutes and then we'll come back. Okay, so after the teas have brewed, I'm actually very surprised already at how big the difference is in terms of the color. You'll notice that this one kind of has that pale, almost like beige yellow color, and this one is actually a little bit more brown in color. So a big difference here in the color of the two teas. The hand-picked so far looks like it's a better color. I don't really know if if color has that much to do with flavor. I don't know how those correspond necessarily. But just as someone who drinks a lot of Gyokuro, if you made me guess which one would taste better, I would definitely guess this one. So this is typically the color I look for in a Gyokuro. It kind of has this like this milky yellow color. For some reason, I find that these teas tend to be the sweetest when they have this kind of this milky color to them. And then this one here, a little bit, not quite brown, but yeah, a little bit darker. So very interesting so far. Let's, there's some light coming through and you can see the colors change a little bit. So yeah, this one definitely darker, but let's go ahead and have a taste. So, wow. Yeah, the Handpicked one, it's very sweet, very smooth, obviously, and definitely fruity. So there's definitely a fruitiness coming from this tea. I would say it's kind of, it's got kind of like a cantaloupe melon to it. So kind of this cantaloupe melon note, and definitely a little hint of like brown sugar. So this is something I get in the Saimidori Gyokuros, like the Cha Meijin, which is one of our most popular Gyokuro teas. This one is super sweet. This one, this Handpicked Saime, is not quite as sweet as that one, but it's close. Okay, let's try this one. So this is gonna be the machine picked. Very interesting. You're definitely not getting as much sweetness. And you're not getting that fruity kind of cantaloupe melon flavor that I really like in the Handpicked one. So I don't want to draw too many conclusions from this, but with the hand picking method, obviously you get more, a better selection of leaves because people are individually picking each leaf. You get larger leaves, of course. That could also be why the color is so different. I don't think it's the hand picking because after all, it's the same leaves. I think it's the fact that the hand-picked one is made from larger unbroken leaves, and these have less relative surface area compared to the machine-picked, which is gonna kind of, some of the leaves are gonna be perfectly picked, but a lot of them are gonna be kind of cut in half or even cut into like a third. So with these much smaller leaves, you're gonna end up with more relative surface area, and that, I believe, is what's contributing to the difference in color. So this one, if I didn't know any better, I would say this tea was over brewed, and it's because it has those smaller pieces, whereas this one, because it's got those large, less broken leaves, it's kind of like a lighter infusion. This one's still very good. I do get that kind of brown sugar or caramel sweetness from the machine-picked one, so it's still very good. Yeah, I think, so with the Handpicked Seimei, what I'm getting a lot is this kind of very brothy, almost miso soup flavor. So it seems unusual, but actually when it comes to Gyokuro, people will more often use kind of food descriptors. So they'll say it's savory, they'll say it's brothy. It might even have, you know, kind of like a, seaweedy, even salty or marine flavor to it. So this is definitely something you get more of with the Handpicked Seimei versus the machine-picked. Okay, so final verdict on these two teas. They are very similar. I don't know if I'd notice a difference if I didn't have them side by side. And if I was just going based on memory, I would kind of think they tasted more or less the same. But now that I have a chance to compare them side by side, this is actually my first comparison of a hand-picked versus a machine-picked tea, so very interesting for me as well. The difference in color is striking, and I do think that is because of the leaf selection, so the size of the leaves. After all, these are both made from the same exact leaves, the same exact plant, they're just picked slightly differently. So the differences are going to come down to the selection of the leaves and also the leaf size. So With this one, you're getting more of that cantaloupe melon kind of fruity sweetness. They both have kind of like a caramel brown sugar sweetness. And then if you want that savory umami flavor, the Handpicked Saime is definitely going to be stronger in this. So this I'm getting kind of like that miso soup, slightly brothy, very thick, almost a little bit of tofu. Very interesting flavor profile. Definitely nothing like it when you look at other teas. Gyokuro is really a category of its own. So this was a very interesting tasting for me as well. So thank you all so much for joining me. If you want to pick up some of the Gyokuro teas from Mr. Sakamoto, you can find them on our website, neoteas.com. Our favorites are the Gyokuro Cha Meijin, which is going to give you more of this kind of warm sweetness that you're getting in these teas. But also the Gyokuro Cha Musume, if you want that kind of direct umami flavor, this is a good option as well. And these Gyokuro teas also work great as cold brews in the warmer months. So definitely something to look forward to as the days get a little warmer. You can enjoy a nice cold brewed Gyokuro tea.